Welcome to Curious Joel, a show about curiosity taking us deeper into the topics of people's passion and interesting conversation. Before we get into today's conversation, I do owe you guys a very big apology. I apologize. It's been quite a while since I've had an episode out. There was quite a few things, including both me and my wife got pretty sick, like stuck in bed for days sick. And then it's been a lot of scheduling challenges, but I'm going to be trying to get back on track as best as I can. And this is going to be a slightly shorter episode today, so I do apologize for that as well, but it's something to kind of keep going. So today we have on a return guest. I'd like to welcome back Rose Circo.
Hello, everybody.
Today our topic is actually one of her biggest fandoms. It is Lord of the Rings.
Woo-woo.
So, what first caught your attention about Lord of the Rings?
So I first learned about the whole world of Lord of the Rings because actually we were on a road trip, I think, and then John and Paul, our older siblings, were reading The Hobbit, and they read to me the first paragraph of The Hobbit, which is talking about where hobbits live. And it sounded so bizarre. And I was just like, what? It didn't make any sense to me. And so that was actually my first introduction to the Lord of the Rings.
Okay.
And didn't think about it, didn't do anything about it for at least, I don't know, 6 months or something. It felt like a long time, but because back then I read so many books every week, every day, every month. There were new books that I was reading.
Yeah.
So it felt like a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And then I picked up The Hobbit and loved it. And I was like, oh, okay, this makes way more sense in context.
Yeah.
And then read The Lord of the Rings, and ever since my first read through of The Lord of the Rings, I have no idea how many times I have read through them in their entirety, but I know that it's more than 20.
Okay. So, really quick, I want to take a step back, pull back the curtain for just a second. So, I personally have not read through any of the books in their entirety, but I think I've talked about that on my show a little bit before about as I got older into my teen years, it got harder and harder to read longer books, just straight up. But I've listened to them. My siblings have read them to me when I was smaller, and I'm pretty well versed in the lore and everything. But for your sake as the audience, I'm going to play as dumb as I can. And that's going to be pretty darn dumb. Most of the time. But yeah. So, you said the books. What books are you talking about specifically?
Oh, okay. So The Hobbit is the first book, and then there's the Lord of the Rings trilogy, which is the Fellowship of the Ring, the Two Towers, and then the Return of the King.
And then, I think most people are fairly familiar with those.
Right.
There's another book that you've read more times than most hardcore Lord of the Rings fans that I've talked to. What's the other book that there hasn't been a movie about?
Oh, geez. Yeah, well, anyway. Gonna take that one for later.
Sure.
But the Silmarillion, I have read that one and a few chapters times.
I mean, it's a big book. What is the Silmarillion encompass for those that have no clue?
So basically, the Silmarillion is the history of Middle-earth, leading up to the events that occur in The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings. So it actually reads very similarly to a textbook. So it is very difficult to get through because there are some places where it's super dry and you're just like, okay, facts.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I don't really care about the facts. Can I have the story?
Right.
And so, but they have there's so many really good stories woven throughout the book, and it all does lead up to and give you the context for the whole Lord of the Rings trilogy and Hobbit.
So what you're saying is that whoever wrote like this high fantasy novels was like, you know what, this is missing a history book, and was like, let me do that one.
Well, I think he kind of wrote them very like, I don't know when he wrote them, but yes, he did a deep dive.
Okay.
And whoever wrote the books. That
feels extreme for just writing some fantasy novels. Like, she's having a hard time with how well I play dumb. So who wrote these several books and a history book to accompany them?
Oh, and several other books as well. There are lots more books. But
I don't know. I think you only can be famous for one thing, and then you're done, right? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
I'm joking. I've had authors on here that have written several series. So, you know, if I were to actually believe that, I'd be not playing dumb anymore.
You'd be in so much trouble.
Joanne would be like, "Hey, Joel. So which one is my good one?"
Yeah. So to answer the question, though, J.R.R. Tolkien.
And so, like, you said is that you wrote a history book. That usually takes someone pretty smart to do that. Like, how smart could he be,
dude,
if he's writing fantasy novels?
Well, to give some context to how smart is he, and I would say the fact that not only did he create an entire working world with systems in place for magic and gods and each people group that has their own governing systems and backgrounds, he also created new languages and
like whole languages?
Whole languages.
Okay, that's a lot for just like some fantasy novel, isn't it? Like a whole language.
Yeah, most.
Wait, did you say language or languages?
I'm not entirely sure if he wrote multiple languages. I know for a fact he wrote one entire language. I know the Dwarvish runes and language were taken in part from our world languages and writing systems, and then I'm not sure if he created a whole language for the dark language or not.
Sorry, you're gonna have to show my cards a little bit. Isn't Elvish also a full separate language, though?
Elvish is the language I'm talking about.
Okay, you said... Okay, Dwarven is the one that's pulled from...
Right, so Elvish is the complete language that he wrote. All the grammatical and everything for that, and you can learn it. It's...
Yeah, you can take that as a course, can't you? Similar to Klingon and Mandalorian, I believe now.
Oh, really? Mandalorian?
I think so. Don't
I know Klingon.
Don't quote me on the Mandalorian.
I know Klingon you can learn.
Klingon is
Klingonese. They have a dictionary and everything.
Yes, and there's colleges that will teach you Klingonese.
Yeah.
Surprise.
That's so bizarre to me. But I know Elvish, he did put like the writing rules and things in the
grammar
appendix for the Lord of the Rings books. So you can at least write it if you wanted to. But
do you have any fun facts about that?
Fun facts about what?
Writing in, fictional languages?
Yes, I didn't even think about that until when you're like, oh yes. So I learned how to write in Dwarvish runes. I used the book as my guide, and I learned how to write in it. And for, I don't know, like 2 years or something, I would write in my journal in Dwarvish. And so unless you know it, you can't read it.
I feel like that's got to be like the best like cryptic like way to write. It's like, it's not a code. You can decrypt a code. decrypting an entire language is a whole nother thing.
Well, I mean, technically speaking, it is more like a code than like a language.
But it has its own grammar.
I didn't use its own grammar. I used English grammar.
Okay.
Spoiler alert.
So now, if you ever find her journal,
yeah,
you're like, aha, that's one step closer. Yeah. So that kind of speaks to how much she likes this series. I do have a question for you because I don't know where to put this question.
Sure.
And I think you were kind of getting caught up in that idea for a second. So
sure. Say it.
So the movies.
Yes.
The movies are based off of the Lord of the Rings trilogy. So
Fellowship, Two Towers, and Return of the King.
Sorry, my brain was like, what's the first one? I forget what the first one's called.
Yeah.
Yeah. So movies, those are very well known. And then the Hobbit book was split into 3 movies.
Correct.
And then I asked about the Silmarillion, and you were like, oh,
right.
The Amazon Prime show
Rings
of Power, that is pulled. If my more recent history of when they were making that is correct, that's from the Silmarillion, isn't that?
They took
vaguely.
So they took stories from the Silmarillion. Some parts of the story are very like I can remember. Oh yeah, I remember that happening in the book. Other parts of it, obviously, they cinematized it, so to speak.
Because you can't just do a good story; you have to make it your own.
Right, and they had to add in more love stories than were written in the book
in the
because
history book.
It wasn't exciting enough. But it's like, dude, it's the book about the Simarils. Like, oh my gosh. Anyway.
We'll come back to that specific statement in a second because you just said something that people are going to be scratching their head about. So I take it from your response, you did watch the Rings of Power.
I tried. Okay. I got through a few episodes and I was trying really hard to suspend my disbelief of the world that they created for it.
Sure.
Because they did take some liberties as far as I can remember. Obviously, it's been a while since I've read Silmarillion.
Artistic license.
Yes. Artistic license was definitely taken. And I just was like, no, those people, nope, no, that didn't, So I didn't finish it.
Yeah. So my card's on the table. I just haven't gotten to it yet because there's been a whole bunch of things that have just recently come out. But I do intend on eventually getting there. But... Yeah. Okay. So, but they do take their fair share of artistic license with the Silmarillion stories to the actual show that was made.
As far as I can remember of the Silmarillion, yes. I do believe they took quite a few liberties, and I think they tried to extrapolate a lot of to create more drama and story.
Gotcha.
But there's just so much in it that they didn't need to.
Wait, it's only like a 400 page, 700, 900.
Well, I guess it depends on the version.
Well,
but, that's the appendix and index.
Yeah, we're not going to have that one. Have you seen the appendix movie?
Dude, the appendix is where all the good information is, though. So 366 pages in this book that I have on hand.
Yeah, but by the way, she does have the stack of the 1-volume version of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, so the 3 books, and then she has the Hobbit and the Silmarillion in a stack just about underneath the microphone. So if you listen really close, you can, by osmosis, have read all
I don't think that's how that
books.
Works. Technically...
I've been getting pretty good with my editing.
But technically, the Lord of the Rings trilogy actually is 6 books.
So what?
So the Fellowship of the Rings is actually 2 books in one, and the Two Towers is actually 2 books in one, and the Return of the King is actually 2 books in one. And if you read through it, it does say book 1, book 2, book 3, book 4, book 5.
I vaguely remember that.
But nobody numbers them that way, so...
Yeah.
And they don't have them like separated out anywhere that I've been able to find.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I don't feel so bad for real nerd Joel not knowing that one off the top of my head. Okay, so you said what the Silmarillion was about. And you used a word that even if someone has happened to have heard of the Silmarillion, has definitely not heard that word. Unless they've read the books, I'm guessing.
Right. And
what did you say again?
So I'm going to put a little asterisk here because I have read all of these words, all of these names so many times. But as if any of your listeners know, when you read it to yourself, you don't always pronounce things correctly.
Oh, yeah.
So if I say anything incorrectly and you hear it and you're like, what? I thought you said she was a nerd and she knows these things.
Tolkien's going to be calling in.
Hey, dude, if I could get a call from him, that would be awesome.
I'd be terrified. He's dead.
Awesome, terrifying. But yes, he's dead.
You said the names wrong.
Right. Well, at least he could tell me the correct way, and then I could move on with my life.
Depending how destroyed his vocal cords are from being dead.
Sure.
Anyway, that's off topic.
So the Simarils. So in the Silmarillion, which you can kind of hear the similarities there. I know similarities, Simarils. Yeah.
Very similar. Simaril. Just kidding.
Don't hurt yourself, kid. Yeah. So they were the big, kind of like the precursor to the Ring of Power. In that they held a ton of power and they were very coveted in the beginning of the Silmarillion. Not the beginning, because the beginning of the Silmarillion is actually the creation of Middle-earth. So that's kind of cool.
Okay.
So I recommend at least reading that first chapter just because it's really cool. And it kind of vaguely reminds me of also C.S. Lewis's creation of Narnia a little bit. But Tolkien definitely...
They were friends.
Yeah, they were definitely
Not
friends.
Rose and C.S. Lewis. Tolkien and C.S. Lewis.
Yeah. I mean, I would totally be friends with both of them.
Sure. Just wanted to get those straight really quick.
But there were 3 Simarils, and kind of one of the things that just kind of made Sauron such a bad guy, he was after one of the Simarils. He wanted its power and its beauty, and so he devised ways to try and get it. Okay.
So in a more real sense, if I were to go find a Simaril, what would it be that I would find?
As far as I can recall. Okay. They were crystals.
Okay. So because I'm like, is it a being? Is it alive?
Sure.
Is it like a stone? Is it a sword?
Sure. Yeah. And the Rings of Power did kind of allude to them a little bit here and there. Like I said, I didn't finish it, but they did allude to it and alluded to certain quests and adventures that occurred in the getting of them, if that makes sense.
Okay. So they were like the 3, just because I can see some easily making this jump, were the Simarils used in the making of the Rings of Power?
No.
Okay. I wanted to clear that up because you said they're like the precursor to I forget the exact word you used.
Not precursor, but they
before the Rings of Power that everyone was after, it was the Simarils that everyone was after, in no relation to each other except for that they were powerful. They were both powerful tools that could be used, and the Simarils were very beautiful, extremely. You think diamonds are pretty? Psh, they got nothing on the Simarils. Gotcha. Okay. It's very interesting, trying to follow these trains of thought that don't necessarily go parallel to each other. Okay. Because my brain's just ooh, here's another random question that has to do with Lord of the Rings. And I'm does that fit here? I don't know.
I'm here for it.
So we're just kind of going to bounce around all over the place. Well,
the next logical thing would be talking about The Hobbit.
I mean, yes. Um, sure, let's go there, I guess. I'll come back to... No, I'm not going to come back to it because I'll forget about it entirely.
Sure.
So I heard a rumor.
Uh-oh.
This is just a
Rumors.
rumor. And I find it vastly amusing.
Okay.
So, and then I after I saw the rumor, I saw lots of memes about the rumor, obviously, because that's how the internet works today. So, someone said that after Zack Snyder released the Zack Snyder cut of the Justice League, which vastly improved the Justice League by adding in everything that he missed because of all the
time constraints and whatnot.
It wasn't time constraints. It was the family issues, mental issues, and stuff like that happened with the death of his daughter and stuff like that. That he had to hand over directorial duties to somebody else. When he came back, he after the movie was released, he came back and he's like, "Okay, I want to get all of my stuff in here and make this my movie," and it actually drastically improved the movie. Someone said, pardon the motorcycle. Someone said that Peter Jackson is planning on releasing the director's cut of the Lord of the Rings movies, and it's 8 hours a movie.
I
or something like that. I've heard. Like I said, I don't know how much to believe anymore because the Zack Snyder cut took an hour and a half movie, made it 4 hours.
I mean,
and so I could totally see, because they filmed for years making the Lord of the Rings trilogy, the first trilogy.
Yeah.
They made several more years filming the Hobbit trilogy. So I'm sure they've got enough material to make the full unedited, unabridged version of these movies that they filmed for years and years. But
I'm giving him a highly skeptical look.
Thank you for the verbal assistance to that.
Okay, so one, I have seen Babylon Bee articles about it, kind of very, what's the word? I lost the word. Not parody.
That word. Sarcastic.
Sure, we'll go with sarcastic. Why do I not know that word? It just disappeared out of my head.
Satire.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, satire. I was like, I'm getting there, Rose. Don't go anywhere. I'm almost there.
So it was a very satirical. Satirical? Yeah, sure.
Yes, that's
the right word. Satirical.
Yes, Simaril.
Simaril.
Okay, all right. Anyway,
it's a new word.
Articles.
It's a new word.
Tolkien does not approve.
Tolkien does not approve.
But Dr. Seuss does.
Yeah. I did read a satirical article.
This is going to be a fun episode.
About Peter Jackson releasing uncut kind of, and I highly doubt that would occur.
I don't know. I mean,
the extended editions, if you've only watched the theatrical releases, this
is a great topic. Go into it. Full on theatrical versus extended, and then
okay,
ultra extended. Yeah, sorry. I was going to bring this up, so you just...
You got really excited.
I did. Well, because I was going to ask the question, and then I was going to try and figure out where to put that, and you got it.
So the theatrical releases were good. I'm going to say that as I read the books many times before the movies ever occurred, and I thought that they were good. There were definitely things that I wish that they had added in, because I felt like they were specifically in the books for a reason. Yeah. And he
it changes things if it's not there.
Yeah, he changed a couple of things, and a couple of them I'm very passionate about.
Sure.
And in the theatrical release, in the extended editions, you get a little bit better feel for what all happened in the books. There's definitely more information, and it's good. It adds to the movie. It doesn't take away from the movie. It definitely adds more depth of character and all of that. And then, so having the Peter Jackson extension,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I have heard that he did add in, or he did have scenes for some of the characters at the ending, which would have added to some of my, soapboxes. But
Sure.
and that would be cool to see. I don't know what else he has in there that I would be like, oh yeah, that was important to add in.
Gotcha. Okay. I mean, like I said, it was just something I've heard, and I couldn't remember where I heard it, and then I recently saw a couple of like memes about it. I'm like, that's a good 2 weeks there of just watching the whole like double trilogy.
Yeah. Oh man, that would take forever. Yeah. I mean,
I think someone did the calculations on the suggested timeline, and it's like, wow. That's a week with 1 hour to pee, sleep, and eat. Or something like that, yeah. I forget what the calculation is, but it's like, it's perfect. It's like...
I mean, I love Lord of the Rings, but I've tried to do like a 1-day Lord of the Rings marathon, and dude, it's rough, especially with the extended editions.
Extended edition specifically.
Yeah, because the extended editions are like excellent. So now I try to watch those every time if I can, but... Sometimes it's just not feasible.
One thing, I have a friend that the one thing that he doesn't like about the extended edition, there's a specific scene, spoiler alert, for one fairly old movie, but it's when Aragorn is trying to persuade the Ghost King to fight. In the theatrical version, it ends with a question mark, and then you're surprised when you see boats come up, and then you're like, oh, it's the ghost, and they're okay. But like in the movie, it comes to the extended edition, it comes to a more like resolute, like, yes, they're going to help, versus are they? I don't know. So it takes away some of the suspense of, are they receiving help? Are they receiving it? That's his opinion of like, he likes this from a cinematic perspective, the unresolved question that gets answered with action.
Yeah, no, I understand that, because it does have a lot more suspense in the theatrical version for that scene.
Yeah, specifically that's the thing. Specifically that, like, he watches extended edition all the time, and that's the one thing is like, except I like it better when you don't know whether or not help is coming in until it does.
But in the books.
Oh yeah.
In the books, it's totally different.
He specifies that specific thing. Like, he's also a pretty big Lord of the Rings fan, and like he's got like the Lord of the Rings monopoly in chess and all that stuff. So, yeah. But anyway, really quick side note: if you do hear some background noise, I do have our two youngest siblings here, and they're doing their best to be quiet and not interrupt. But if you hear some stuff going on, that's what changed. Anyway, so I forgot to ask this more up front, because this is a really difficult question for you, Rose.
Oh gosh.
And I'll even make it easier on you. Okay, I'll give you The Hobbit, and then the Lord of the Rings trilogy. What is your favorite movie?
Oh, okay. I mean, I love the Fellowship of the Ring movie. It is phenomenal, and I can watch it straight through, no problem. Okay. Love all the character development. I am not a huge fan of all the scenes with Smeagol in them, in the Two Towers at the ending and in the Return of the King. If I'm being completely honest, when I read the books, I would kind of skip over most of that, because I just, Smeagol is just one of those characters that you just hate. And he's a very hard character to get through, and there's so much more whining that occurs when he's around.
So again, showing my nerdom a little bit, whenever I watch the movies, I basically, if it's just if Frodo's in the scene with not enough other people, I just kind of move past it.
Frodo?
Like, yeah, in the movies, like Sam redeems some of those scenes, but some of it's just like it's literally like to me what I get from like the scenes with Sam, Frodo, and Smeagol is like just complaining and like heavy. Like that's all I get. I'm like, no, let's go back to like people making choices, not I don't know if I can do it, Sam. I don't know if I can. It's like, okay, I get it. It's rough. It's rough, buddy.
Yeah, I mean,
but you also have one of the coolest people on the planet helping you the entire way. Like,
yeah. Well, and like, I think several years ago, I came to the realization of like how much the ring was affecting Frodo and his whole mindset.
I get that.
It gave him in my eyes a little bit more grace.
Yeah,
but I still tend to want to skip over those things.
So my thing, and this might be selfish of me or just be a different spot where I'm at, but I'm like, I have a thing in my life that wears me down, tires me out, and makes me see the world in a very negative perspective. But you don't see me sitting there most of the time dealing with it going, you see me pushing through and going like, hey, you know, I need to, for my own well-being, do something that, you know, and like I understand that Frodo is in that context is very strong for what it does to most people. But at the same time, it's like, there's a part of me that just can't sympathize as much with him as other people can. Because I'm like, I'm sorry, I've had this for most of my life, not just the past 4 months or whatever.
Sure.
Like, and like, you kind of like, not to like just be stoic, but like you kind of learn to deal with it because to some point there's not much you can do except for like, I just have to try. You know, and if you want more information on that specific thing, I had a whole episode with Jackie and Rose talking about my depression. But like, it's something that like, you know, I lose sympathy for him as like, there's only so much complaining before even me with my depression gets sick of it.
Which I think they tried to kind of portray in the movies with that one scene, spoiler alert again, for those of you random people who have not seen the movies.
Well, okay. So really quick, the reason I said that way is because like there are some, it's old enough that there's people that just haven't necessarily seen it, you know? So, like this might be the inspiration to go watch these movies for the first time. And I don't want people to be like, wait, he does what? What? Shoot, what's his name? The actor? Sean
Austin?
No, not that one.
Sean Bean.
Yeah. Sean Bean dies in the movie?
Oh my god.
It's like, well, yeah, you know, like he does in every movie he's ever been in.
There's actually one or two that he doesn't.
I know. I remember because I got surprised. Like, wait, he survived the whole movie?
Yeah, he's a phenomenal actor too.
But like, it's one of those things like, I don't want somebody to be like, wait. It's like, I did give you a spoiler warning that like, these are things that are core key moments, but like, you know, yeah, that's why I do give a spoiler alert for a movie that's as old as and as popular as it is. But.
Sure, but my spoiler alert is that like in the movie, as opposed to in the book, because in the book it's totally different.
Yeah. In
the movie, there's a point where Sean. Thanks. Now I can't. Okay, what are the right names? There we go. Okay. Not even that Sean.
You know, with Sean Bean, the famous Lord of the Rings character.
No, I was gonna say Sean Austin, but his name in the movies is Sam, and I was thinking of Sam. But...
You know that pivotal scene where Sam Bean.
Yeah, where Sam Bean. Anyway. These poor people, they're like, can they just have the spoiler alert already?
It's like, no. Fast forward is like, wait.
Still spoiler alert. Okay, I'm going to say it. Here we go. The spoiler is that there is a scene where Sam and Frodo and Gollum are working their way to Mordor. And in the movie, Smeagol kind of like wheedles his way into Frodo's mindset and turns Frodo against Sam and sends Sam home.
Yeah.
And that never happened in the book. But that was kind of the way of like showing how things had been wearing down on him. And like he was just so over. He was like, I don't think I can do it. And so he sent the one person away who could give him that inspiration and that hope.
Yeah. Like I said, it's just something that, like, me personally, with the things that I've dealt with in my life, I'm just like, there are certain things that I'm like, okay, either you get over it, and again, not to be insensitive to anybody's any struggle, like, but there's a certain point where, like, you either take it or you get over it. Like, you have to make a choice to move in a direction. Not saying that, like, I mean, obviously, not saying that, like, well, duh, just like, whatever. But, like, I get sick and tired of my complaining and being sorry for myself and the pity parties and everything like that. And I'm like, okay, I need to change. Or it's like, you know what, I'm just gonna wallow in it. But, like, Frodo somehow, like, walks this knife edge of, like, I'm not gonna just take it, but I'm also not gonna do anything to change it either. It's like, okay, so you're just kind of not. But anyway, that's
a side issue at the moment.
I understand. I just
to the original question, like I said, the Fellowship of the Rings, like, I can watch all the way through, no problem. But if we took away all the Gollum parts, that would be a different story, and it's much harder to choose. But my favorite scene, is in Two Towers.
Okay.
And it's the scene. Oh, now I'm second guessing myself. But it's the scene where. Sorry, I'm second guessing myself so hard right now.
I'm in suspense because it's a long movie and I can't guess which one is your favorite.
Now I'm trying to remember if it's in Two Towers or Return
just
of the
tell
King.
me the scene.
But the scene, my favorite scene out of the entire trilogy, no matter which movie it's in, let's put it that way.
Sure.
Is when Aragorn comes and he walks up. He's been thought dead, and he walks in and he throws open the double doors, and he's standing there and he's drenched and he's filthy and he's got blood everywhere, and it's just like, but it's so good because it's like,
really
dude,
well done.
Here he is alive, and he is here. Like, dude.
Okay, so it's either towards the end of the Two Towers or the very beginning of the Return of the King.
That's why I started second guessing myself so hard.
But like, it's not the Fellowship of the Ring.
I know it's not the Fellowship.
Sure. It's either at the end of the second movie or the beginning of the third. I just don't remember that. But I'm sure some.
It's in Two Towers. It's in Two Towers. Yeah, there we go.
Anyway, okay. What about The Hobbit?
The Hobbit, I haven't watched the movies enough to pick a favorite. I did love Benedict Cumberbatch as Smaug in the movies. That was just brilliant.
What I'm hearing is like most humanity, loves Benedict Cumberbatch. Period.
Well, I mean, I know plenty of people that aren't like super fans of his or anything.
I didn't say that.
Oh, okay.
I chose my words very carefully. But I don't know many people that are like, who or you. I
do like the interaction in the books and in the movies of Bilbo and Smaug. Just like, their interaction is so, I want to say, like, pure, but it's not. Like, it's just,
well, you could say pure.
I could say pure, but it's not.
Bilbo's pretty pure, and Smaug's also pretty pure.
It's just
opposite ends of the spectrum of pure.
It's like very,
because Smaug is like pure evil.
I'll say this: it's very genuine.
Okay,
because I think that's a better word for that. I think it's just so genuine. Of like, they're both trying to be sneaky, but they're both also trying to not be sneaky, and so it's just fun to play. So yeah, I can't pick one of the
Hobbit like I said movies. That's why I was like, it's gonna be hard because the next one was gonna be book. if you only could have one book to read,
Oh.
and I won't do the whole split book thing that you're talking about because that's just ridiculous. No matter how true it is, it's ridiculous.
I think probably Two Towers.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna go through a few favorites.
Oh dear.
Because we're both so good at favorites. We're so good at favorites.
All right, lay it on me.
Favorite. Oh, hold on.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to be sensitive about this because I don't want to speak incorrectly, but I guess non-full humanoid creatures in Lord of the Rings.
Non-full human.
So the reason I had to phrase it that way is because the Ents are my favorite in the category I was thinking of like they're not like dwarves, elves, humans,
Okay.
But they're humanoid, kind of.
So sentient?
Yeah, I guess.
Okay. Say the question one more time.
So like. No, okay, I'll rephrase it. I'll rephrase it entirely.
I think I got lost in the question.
Yeah, I phrased it really, really weird. This is one of the first times mid-interview that I'm sitting there going like, that was just a really bad question. So, aside from, like, humans, dwarves, hobbits, and, like, elves, like, the core species, races, however he phrases them, outside of those, what are your favorite, like, sentient or non-sentient, like, beings in Lord of the Rings?
Ooh.
And if it helps narrow it down, you could limit it to what you've seen in the movies.
Okay, well, extended or not.
Wait, what's it? Is there a creature that's in the extended that's not in the theatric?
I'm trying to think.
I think everything.
Oh no, that's The Hobbit. Never mind.
Okay.
Well, I know they don't play like a huge role, but I really like the Eagles.
The Eagles, yeah.
Like, I mean, I also love the Ents. Don't get me wrong. I love all the other creatures. I love Treebeard.
One of my favorite scenes is when the Ents take the tower.
Oh yeah.
Because it's just like you just realize like it's a tree. It's a giant, well taken care of tree. So even your fiery arrows aren't like just instantly burst them into flames. You realize how intensely powerful a living tree can be.
Oh yeah.
Like it's just like it's just awe-inspiring to me. It's like, oh yeah, they're really powerful, and if you give like sentience behind that, yeah, trees will mess you up.
Oh yeah, I mean trees. I mean in the book, Treebeard is talking about what they can do as they march on Isengard. He's talking to Merry and Pippin, and he talks about the power of the Ents, and it's like,
I don't think I've heard that passage before.
Oh man!
Now I'm like,
it's a good paragraph or two about like the power of the Ents, and it's just like, oh yeah, because in the books, tree roots.
They go far.
They can split rock.
Yeah,
and stone and like.
I mean, if you look at like the like quote unquote power of nature like compilations or like pictures and stuff like that, like what trees can do is insane. Like just like you can see pictures of like a tree that like split and broke a rock in two and is carrying that rock up into the sky, and it's like that's like a 410 rock, and it's just going. Yeah, just going.
And that's kind of like. The power of the Ents is that they have all the power of trees, but they can make it happen really fast.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay. Don't mess the Ents up.
Glad we're on your side.
Yeah. I think Merry and Pippin even say that at one point. Like,
I think that's even in the movie. I
think so.
I think there's a point like, wow, glad you're on our side. But yeah, so you're saying the Eagles.
Yeah. I mean, I think now this is controversial, and this is a favorite only because I thought of them as my favorite in the moment. So you ask me a week from now, it might be something else entirely.
I get you.
Because I don't like favorites.
Like I said, that's why this is a really hard question and a series of questions.
But in the moment, the Eagles play such a large role in the bigger scale.
Impactful.
Yeah, impactful.
Impactful is the word.
Impactful, sure.
Because big would be like
Yeah.
main characters.
But like the line, "the eagles are coming," is so powerful in both The Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings.
Sure.
And like they're this great power that they do their own thing. They mind their own business. But when it comes down to it, they got your back.
Right. Yeah, okay. By the way, someone's just because talking about a lot of things that just like, I mean, this fandom's been around for a very long time.
Oh, yeah.
Lots of things have been talked about. And like, this is going to be like a short episode. So like, audience, if you're listening, you're like, they didn't even talk about all these other things. Like, let me know, and I can get more people on to talk about Lord of the Rings for longer, you know. Yeah. But one of the things I wanted to touch on, since you brought up the Eagles, because like there's a whole thing you're like, well, like even if you watch like the how it should have ended and stuff like that, it's like, well, they should have just flown the Eagles and just dropped it in. And the reason I've heard that they didn't was because like basically essentially subterfuge the element of surprise. Like the forces of evil were expecting something like that to happen, and if they had, it would not have ended very well. That's what I've heard, is like, if they did ask the Eagles, like, just drop us over there, I'll just throw the ring in from the sky, just drop it in, done. Woo! Short movie. You know? But that if they had done that, that it actually would not have necessarily succeeded, because that would have been expected, especially with like the Nazgul and, you know, all that stuff.
I would say, listen, Tolkien wrote The Lord of the Rings for a purpose.
Sure. And
the movies do not convey the full purpose of the entire thing, which is a very different purpose than what the movies portray. The whole purpose of The Lord of the Rings wasn't to destroy the Ring of Power. Now, it was a purpose and it was a main goal for everybody, but in Tolkien's, like the way that he wrote the story, the purpose was to empower the hobbits to stand up for themselves and defeat the evil in their homeland.
Yeah, that's not as effective if you just drop a ring in a hole.
And so if all that Frodo had to do was fly on an eagle and drop a ring in a hole, and then he went back to his homeland and tried to defeat the great evil that was there,
right? Because
there was no character development to help him to understand he had the power to do that.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so a couple things. One is, I just thinking about it, and like, the framing of the Fellowship of the Ring was to, like, their goal was to destroy the ring, but Tolkien's goal was to help, like, what happens after. Because just because the ring is destroyed doesn't mean there's no army, there's no more evil. There's still both of those things. Like, you got the big bad. Right. That's it. Like, after that, you still... Pardon, the dog?
Sorry, that was the dog's tail on the screen door.
But like, you still have an evil, and like, I mean, if you watch the movies, you see like that there is a prediction of the future of the Hobbit's hometown being like torched, and so unless you have that, like, hey, we can do stuff too, you know.
Yeah, and in the movie, when they went back to the Shire, they didn't have to deal with it in the movie. Right. When they went home, everything was green and happy and fine. But in the books, it did turn out like the vision that Sam had when he looked into the mirror. And they had to like fight. And they had to raise the Shire. They had to raise all the hobbits to fight against the evil and banish it from their homeland. And if you think about when Tolkien wrote this, like, it was kind of a metaphor for the battles that they were fighting at the time in the world, and how they wanted to make sure that the evil at home was taken care of as well.
And for perspective, for listeners, what battles are going on when he was writing this?
You're asking me about real history?
Sorry, wrong sibling. If memory serves, this was like World War II, right?
You're asking about real history, and I failed that subject almost. I mean, I didn't really, but I don't remember dates. I don't remember what was happening at what time. I can look it up real quick if you want. But they were fighting a world war.
Actually, yes. I wouldn't mind if you wanted to look it up really quick just to give context. If you want to give context, just look it up. We'll take a quick moment. Okay, so.
All right, so I looked it up. And it
after a bad lookup.
After a bad lookup, which, yeah, if you want to know what a bad lookup is, hit Joel up and ask him, and I'll give him the answer. I'm curious to know how many of you actually want to know what that is. But
what did Rose search first to try to figure this question out?
What qualifies as a bad lookup? What I did.
Anyway,
so he wrote Lord of the Rings during the Great War, which is now known as World War One.
Gotcha. So this was like
If you're going to ask me more history.
No. This is I'm trying to get the semantics of this right because the semantics matter in this moment. Mm-hmm. But like, because propaganda is way too strong a word, and I don't want to slap that on this. Mm-hmm. But like, it was kind of like that mentality of like, we need to stand together. We need to like kind of that's the mentality that was going through his head as he's writing this, because World War One, or the Great War, was like going on, and like that's something that like everyone could relate to at the time, was like, just, hey, there's a big evil, and yeah, we could have, the strong countries go out there, but if we're not all together, it's not like we can't win unless everybody's there, And so like that mindset, not propaganda.
Analogy.
Yeah, analogy. Thank you. But yeah. So I mean, like that really kind of puts it into perspective. Like if you look at it with like World War with a high fantasy world war, essentially.
Yeah. So the purpose wasn't to hurry up and get the ring destroyed. Yeah. In Tolkien's mind, I mean, yes, but it would make for a terrible movie, and it would make for a terrible plot line and terrible character development.
No one would read that story of like, there once was a ring, and then some people flew on an eagle, and it died.
Yeah, and plus the eagles, they weren't just like some dumb bird.
Right, they're sentient. They're fully sentient.
Yeah, they had their own governing society and everything, and they had to be asked and begged to help in certain things. Yeah. And so it wasn't just like an everyday occurrence. Oh, you just catch a ride on a bird. Like that was not normal.
But I mean, even with that, like, I mean, you can still like, they could have gone and employed the birds like they did later. Like they could have done that. Like that's still a possibility. I'm not saying it was like a, hey, taxi, but like,
yeah. And that's what people tend to think of it as, like, they wanted just a taxi, and that whole like, that theory that Gandalf was trying to give them the whole plan. Fly, fools, fly. Like, no, that was not it. He was saying, get out of here. Yeah. Go. Yeah. Like, not go fly. It was a cryptic message. Like, no, stop.
Yeah. And I have a pretty decent perspective coming to that, like, with D&D as a background, because people think of dragons as, like, these beasts. And, like, in Dungeons & Dragons are actually a higher sentience than most life forms. Mm-hmm. Like, they are ancient beings that pass down information from ancient beings. Like they have a higher society than humans and elves and all these other like beings. And
well,
so,
even in Lord of the Rings, they had sentience, right? Dragons.
Yeah. So. Yeah, exactly. Like, but like they're not just like, I breathe fire and eat things. Woo! Like but like the eagles. But yeah. Anyway.
Going a little off topic there.
Yep.
But yes. So that's why that is not the thing. They had to go through all the trials and tribulation.
It was kind of almost the trope. This is my other thing was like, from a while ago. I don't know. I had two things at one point, and I got one of them. Okay. This is the second thing from whenever that was. So have fun figuring out how long my brain takes to finish the thought. But it's almost two of the most common tropes of it was the lessons, the what we had all along and what we found along the way.
It's the hero's journey.
Well, yeah, but but it was almost direct. Like it was the power inside you all along, and it was the friends we made along the way kind of thing. Like, it was almost those two tropes, almost to the letter of which is not a bad thing, but it's just like I'm a pretty intellectual person, and it took me for you saying that phrase, whatever you did, whenever ago that was, for me to be like, oh my gosh, it's just that trope, which is, I mean, there's only so many things you can do with the story.
Yeah.
So,
and Tolkien had a bit of that in the book, in Lord of the Rings, during the Fellowship of the Rings. They didn't put this in the movies, either version. But they had an encounter with one of your favorite characters, I know, Tom Bombadil.
Yes. This is the one other thing that I want to talk about before we end the podcast, because I haven't ever read the books. I've heard a lot about Tom Bombadil. Yeah. And one of the crazy things about Tom is that, so if you're at all familiar with the movies, you know, when you put the ring on, you're tempted by it, and two, you disappear. You turn invisible, and you enter this, like, half realm or whatever. You know, when Tom holds and puts on the ring, it's just a piece of jewelry. Yeah. And it's just like, wait, why? And like, I love those characters that defy every single logic that has been put in, but not just as a fallacy, but because there's something more. And I love that, like, intrigue of, like, because I love doing this as a dungeon master when I'm creating a story of, like, wait, sorry, we all weigh twice as much. Why is this thing, like, skipping along? It's like, It's
Don't
like,
you watch
wait, oh no, should we be scared? Or is this a good thing? Wait, why? Why are they, like, and that's something that I really like about Tom, is that he's just this other thing, and no one knows why, you know?
Yeah. But in the encounter and adventure that the hobbits, before they met up with anybody else in the Fellowship, this was on their way to Bree. They got lost in the forest, and things occurred, and they met Tom Bombadil. But he sent them on their way, and then they got trapped by some evil, right? And that was where you first saw the strength and courage and resiliency of hobbits. It was the first indication that, hey, they can actually deal with a lot more than you think that they can, because they're just little people. Yeah. But they actually have great strength of character. Right. And that was the first little glimpse. And it was so important, even though the whole Tom Bombadil thing, that's a whole different story. Right. Because he's his own character. And it was really funny because in the book, when Tom takes the ring and puts it on, it took all the hobbits a few moments to realize, like, wait, he didn't disappear. Like, what? Yeah. But that moment with Tom where they came out of the evil, and Frodo was the first one to, like, come to himself and be able to take care of business. And you're just like, oh, he's had this within him the whole time. Yeah. And then as you go along, so in the books, he's a little bit less whiny. Just saying. He's a little bit less whiny. He's still whiny, but less. Right. But you just know he has the ability to resist evil more than people give him credit for. Sure. So that's like a really cool thing. So you do have that trope of, oh, he's had it all along. But he didn't know he had it until he goes through everything else.
I mean, that is the point of the trope, is that, like, there's so many, I mean, and the trope is there because of reality. Is like, there's so many things that, like, wait, I went and did all this stuff.
Yeah, I didn't think I could.
But, like, you're saying that I could have done all this stuff before I did all this stuff. It's
but
like,
you didn't know you could, so therefore you didn't.
And, like, that sometimes the hardest part of a skill is learning how to use the skill that you've had your entire life. Yeah. You know? But yeah. Sorry, I'm, like, trying to, like, will myself to actually stop talking about the subject, because my plain dumb didn't last as long as I thought it was going to. But yeah. So, like I said before, if audience, if you want to hear more about this, obviously we've hit like 0.5% of like what we could talk about. And like I said, this is just with me and my sister, but most of my family could sit and talk about this subject for hours. I have friends that could do the same. And so if you want to hear more about Lord of the Rings in any format or form, if you want to talk about the cartoon Hobbit movie,
yeah, there's a trip.
there's a whole bunch of stuff that we could go into more. If you want to hear more, please let me know about that. Before I go into my whole sign off, because I almost slipped right into that.
Yeah, you did.
My brain starts with like, yeah, this. Oh, and there we go. I do want to thank Heroes for this very last minute agreeing to come on and just talk about one of your favorite subjects. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, as you said, I could sit here and talk Lord of the Rings with you for hours, and I have before. I
just no mic present.
Yeah, so I'd be more than happy to chat more about Lord of the Rings or any of Tolkien's work, really.
Yeah.
Because he has quite a few pieces that are not Lord of the Rings related, too. Just FYI.
I don't believe you. I'm just kidding. No. But yeah. So if you have any questions specifically for like that next like second episode of Lord of the Rings, please let me know. Hit me up. Yeah. And then just before I forget again, do you want to plug anything? If people want to send questions to you, do you want them to have that ability?
Oh no, they can send them to you.
Cool.
It'll be more fun
fine.
that way.
That's fine. I just wanted to give you that.
I appreciate it.
Because like I remember last time you were on the episode, I kind of like brushed past it and then had to come back. It was a whole mess. So I just want to get ahead on that one. But yeah. So as usual, thank you all so much for listening. Words and things. I really appreciate it. Big shout out, as always, to Milana Dodd. You can find her amazing graphics design stuff at milanadodd.com, and her Instagram is linked there. Big shout out to December, my wife, December Circo. You can find her stuff at decembernoelphotography.com, and all of her social media is linked on there. Braden Sons has been working on his quite a few things, actually. I just recently helped him with a short documentary that he's going to be turning into a longer one later and adding to that. So stay tuned to his YouTube channel, The Coaster Gnome, and he will be having some more stuff on there as well. And all that will be linked in the description below. If you have questions or comments for me or have any suggestions of people or to interview or things to talk about, please let me know at Joel Circo on Twitter/X. Sorry, that's a whole... I could go on about all the stupidness that's been going on too. You can find me on Instagram at CuriousJoelCast. Or you can also do the same thing with CuriousJoelCast@gmail.com. Thanks always for listening. Nope, that's not how I say that. I know how to do this. Thank you all for listening, and I'll catch you all on the next episode.